Hello everyone, my name is Xiomaro and welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about the brand new tank in Overwatch, Sigma. If you haven't seen him yet, there are plenty of people playing him on the PTR already who you could watch on Twitch, or you could download the PTR and play him for yourself. Just for the record, in the Ilios footage I'm using here, I'm actually the Wrecking Ball, but I'm recording from my teammate's perspective so you can see Sigma's abilities more clearly. This video isn't supposed to be a rundown of his kit, but as he's so new, I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't even know what he does yet. So very quickly, Sigma's kit is pretty much entirely based around gravity. His primary fire shoots out 2 gravity balls in relatively quick succession with a reasonably long time between shots. If you hit both of those, it will do 120 damage, which is pretty decent burst, but the longer time between shots means it feels a bit bursty rather than consistent sustained damage like many other tanks have. His secondary fire sends out a roughly Reinhardt-sized shield in front of him, and this thing travels really fast. When you hold secondary fire, it just keeps moving forwards, but the moment you release secondary fire, it stops and remains in place until it breaks, or until you press secondary fire again to recall it. The shield has 1500 health, so it's a pretty decent size, and you can constantly reposition it very quickly. But the trade-off is, not only is the shield health a little smaller than Rein's, it also recharges a little more slowly too. His shift ability absorbs projectiles in front of him and converts damage taken into a personal shield. Essentially, the more damage you absorb with this ability, the bigger shield you will get afterwards, up to a maximum of 400. The absorption itself works in a very similar way to Defense Matrix. It only works in a frontal cone, so you can still be shot in the back, but it does absorb basically everything Defense Matrix can. So yes, you can eat those Graviton Surges, Mei ults, Bastion spam and all that kind of stuff. 2 differences are its ability to block both Brig's Flail and Roadhog's Hook though. His E ability gathers debris, turns it into a boulder, and then flings it forwards. When it hits the enemy, it either knocks them back, or if you hit them from far enough away, it'll additionally knock them down. Essentially, the further you throw it, the longer the CC. It also feels like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it feels like the rock itself can block projectiles. At the very least, I know that a friendly Sigma can redirect the boulder of an enemy Sigma with his primary fire, so it can certainly block Sigma's primary fire. And finally, Sigma's ultimate allows him to temporarily levitate and move around freely while he summons a black hole. When you use primary fire, anyone caught in the black hole is pulled up into the air, held there, and then slammed back down, taking 50% of their max health as damage. Yes, it's a beefy ultimate. So let's talk about where he might fit into a team comp. So my immediate thought when I loaded into the practice range, and I'm sure this was the same for most of you guys, was, oh, he has a shield, I guess he's the new main tank. But after jumping into an actual game, it became abundantly clear that he can't really initiate a fight on his own, and that's kind of a prerequisite of a main tank. Likewise, his abilities don't really lend themselves to keeping another main tank in the fight for longer, like a Zarya bubble would for Rein or a Defense Matrix could for Winston. His rock ability and primary fire can combo with Orissa's pull quite well, but it's definitely not as strong as a Roadhog hook. And his damage output, while the burst is quite decent, definitely isn't as consistent as the rest of the tank roster. Of course, you could technically play him with any combo, and I'm sure there will be some Sigma one-tricks who find some interesting interactions with all the tank pairings, but at least from what I've seen so far, he doesn't pair with Reinhardt nearly as well as Zarya does. He can't dive with Winston and keep him alive like D.Va can. One tank he does seem to work fairly well with is Orisa. I feel like at lower ranks, Orisa Sigma shield spam will be a strong and obnoxious combo. He can kinda help Orisa push before popping her shield too. Sigma throws his shield down a lane, Orisa pushes up as far as she can, and then pops her own shield. It definitely allows Orisa to be more aggressive with her own movement and shield positioning. But at higher ranks, I think Roadhog will still be a vastly superior choice with Orisa. I've tried a few games with Sigma and other off-tanks like D.Va, Roadhog and Zarya, but it really feels like the team lacks a way to forcefully push their way forward and make space. So he certainly feels like an off-tank in that regard, even though he has that shield that would make you think he's a main tank. And what I've said so far is basically the same train of thought that I've seen a lot of people on Reddit going through. So he doesn't feel like a main tank, but he doesn't really feel like he's strictly better than any of the classic combos either. And here I am, as someone who basically one-tricked a certain hamster for a couple of seasons, thinking, Wrecking Ball, Wrecking Ball, Wrecking Ball. So is Sigma Wrecking Ball's off-tank? Now, I know that people at lower ranks will argue that Wrecking Ball isn't a main tank, There are a lot of people who think a big shield is the defining feature of a main tank. I've even heard some people say they don't think Winston is a main tank, even though he does actually have a shield. And those people will probably think Sigma fits in the main tank role for that exact same reason. But at least in my opinion, as a former flex player and wannabe main tank main, the main role of a main tank is to let the rest of the team press W. You're the first guy in, you dictate the rules of engagement, and you make space. Wrecking Ball does all of those things. He doesn't offer any direct protection to his team, but at least in my opinion, he's the best tank in the game for making quick engagements. Higher ranked people are just sitting here right now thinking, well duh, but I think there are still a lot of people at lower ranks who don't realise Wrecking Ball does take the main tank role. So before role queue, the ideal comp for Wrecking Ball was usually solo tanking with 3 or 4 DPS. He has more than enough tools to survive without any help from an off tank, and he's great at creating chaos while heroes like Pharah, Hanzo, Doomfist and Sombra, who don't strictly need a shield, poke from every conceivable angle. It's a really strong strategy and it's actually been used as a counter to GOATs before. But with the introduction of Role Queue and Force 222, where does Wrecking Ball fit? Most Wrecking Ball mains, myself included, will tell you that he can work with pretty much anything but Roadhog. Put an off-tank with him and he can be much more aggressive with his engagements, while the off-tanks can help keep the backline alive. Play him with another main tank and you can try and keep the enemy at the other tank's effective range. So if you were playing with a Rhine, you'd boop squishies towards him so he can swing at them, or if you're playing with Orisa, you keep knocking people away so the rest of the team can break shields before the enemy even has a chance to get close. The most common combo you'll see though is D.Va. Wrecking Ball D.Va kinda plays like an alternative dive comp. It definitely has a lot going for it. D.Va can help keep the backline and Wrecking Ball alive with Defense Matrix. You've got the D.Va Bomb into Hammond Slam combo, and there are a few other cool interactions as well. It's a very fast-paced and chaotic comp. It's also a great way of dealing with Bastion Bunker. D.Va eats the spam, while Wrecking Ball boops Orisa and company off the high ground. And I still think that'll probably be the go-to tank combo for Bastion comps on Paris and stuff like that. But in other situations, it can feel like an inferior dive comp. Sure, you can get loads of cheesy environmental kills compared to a Winston dive, and in areas with low skyboxes that Winston struggles to dive, it allows you to continue playing dive. But in other situations, it can leave enemy hit scan and snipers a little more free, where Winston dive can absolutely hard counter that stuff. Wrecking Ball D.Va definitely isn't bad, but at least in my opinion, I much prefer playing Wrecking Ball solo tanking with 3 DPS. But that's not going to be an option anymore. Now, in steps Sigma, the off-tank without a natural main tank to pair with, and Wrecking Ball, the main tank who is now in need of a natural off-tank. And for now, I'm calling this comp Spaceballs. So one of the main features missing from a Wrecking Ball comp when you play him as a main tank is, you guessed it, a shield. Hammond has no problems getting into a fight, softening up targets, causing chaos and getting out without a scratch. But while he's doing that, he leaves the backline completely exposed to enemy hit scan and spam. You can shoehorn an Orisa or Reinhardt into that comp, but I always feel like it's kind of suboptimal compared to Rein Zarya or Orisa Hog. Sigma, while he can't initiate a fight, does provide a shield for his team, and interestingly, the shield moves at a similar-ish speed to Wrecking Ball. I don't think it's supposed to be used as a shield while Wrecking Ball goes in, but it does allow him to place a shield in a suitable location about as fast as Wrecking Ball can dive. You could certainly use the shield in a static location to protect your team while they shoot from afar, but then why not pick Orisa because she's kind of better at that. So I get the feeling that his shield might be better used to deny enemy positions. Widow on the high ground, shove a shield in her face so she has to move. Pharah ulting, shove a shield in her face so she kills herself. I feel like Sigma's shield isn't supposed to be used in the same way as Rein or Orisa. Of course you can use it that way, for example to protect your McCree while he's using High Noon or something like that, but the speed at which you can reposition this thing makes me think you're going to want to constantly move it to deny positions from the enemy DPS. He's pretty slow moving, but his abilities have decent range for a tank, so I can imagine him staying closer to the backline to protect them with his shift ability while providing ranged shields. And while he is closer to the fight, he could use his E and primary fire on targets that Wrecking Ball slams into the air. Wrecking Ball slam into Sigma primary fire is basically an insta-kill on a squishy. A Wrecking Ball slam does 100 damage if you land right in the center of someone, and Sigma's primary fire does 120 damage, and it does do a bit of splash, so you could potentially kill multiple people with this combo. Likewise, you could use his E to extend the CC on a tank that gets thrown into the air. And the headline combo, at least in my opinion, is the way their ultimates interact. Sigma's ult, while powerful, does have a similar problem to Doomfist. It takes a bit of time to activate, giving your opponents time to get away. In steps Wrecking Ball Slam again to keep the enemy in position for Sigma to get a fat ultimate. So up goes half the enemy team, but here's the finisher. Wrecking Ball places his minefield beneath the levitating enemies. Every single one of them is about to take 50% damage from the Sigma ult, followed by 130 damage from a mine. That's going to insta-kill all of the squishies who hit a mine. I don't think that's necessarily a combo that people should fully tunnel vision on achieving. Wrecking Ball's ult feels like it charges roughly twice as fast as Sigma's. But if the stars align and you do have both of them for the next fight, it's basically a guaranteed fight winner. So I don't think Wrecking Ball Sigma will be the only combo for the two of them. D.Va will still have her place along Wrecking Ball, and Sigma definitely seems like he could work with Orisa. But at least to me, it feels like Sigma and Wrecking Ball cover each other's weaknesses so well that it almost feels like Blizzard designed Sigma to be Wrecking Ball's off-tank. As for the rest of the comp that would go along with this tank combo, I could see it working really well for things like Pharah Mercy, Doomfist, Sombra, Widow, Hanzo, and others. There are so many opportunities to knock people into the air, and for Hanzo or Widow to one-shot people like clay pigeon shooting. People have suggested Widow Doomfist as a potential DPS duo to go along with this, and I could definitely see that. Sigma's shield could allow your Widow to more easily duel against the enemy snipers. Doomfist, Wrecking Ball, and Sigma can all knock people into the air for Widowmaker to land easy shots, and the general chaos would allow Doomfist to wreak absolute havoc. This comp would have tons of one-shot potential, and it would be a great counter to slower moving comps. For supports, I could see pretty much anything but Moira and Baptiste working. They're just too inconsistent for healing Doomfist, Wrecking Ball, Widow, Pharah, and all that kind of stuff. But in particular, I could definitely see Zen and Mercy working quite well with this comp, because it just kind of amplifies all that damage and burst potential that you already have. So I've played a few games both as and against Sigma Wrecking Ball comps, and it definitely feels strong. It's got that same chaos that Wrecking Ball always creates, but with Sigma in there, it adds that extra layer of protection for the squishies and plugs some of the big gaps in Wrecking Ball's kit. I've also been subject to the Gravity Mines combo, and it definitely hurts. Of course, we've barely seen what Sigma is truly capable of yet, but at least from my highly biased Wrecking Ball main perspective, I think I might finally have an off-tank to play with who truly feels like they belong in the comp. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Maybe you think Sigma is a main tank, but we just don't understand his kit yet. Or maybe you think he makes a better off-tank for another tank. Whatever your opinion is, feel free to share it down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please feel free to subscribe for more gaming guides, news, and discussion. And don't forget to check out the links below to Patreon, Discord, and Twitch. Until next time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.